And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who really wants a hot pastrami sandwich. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, do I have something to tell you about pastrami. But first, it's beautiful here. I'm on the mainland. I'm not on Milleronia. And Colonel Jeff is with me, of course, and he's not on Milleronia either. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But we're both very happy. We love our theme song. We love doing our prep work before the show. And boy, does that music make us feel good. That's, of course, the Lloyd Woodall Orchestra and the Zero Woodall Dancers, featuring boy tenor Casey Locke asking the musical question, why do you have to wash your dishes before putting them in an automatic dishwasher? Well, holy mackerel. First of all, Casey, you have to, okay? You just plain have to. And I think you give yourself away by saying, why do you have to wash your dishes before putting them in an automatic dishwasher? Well, you don't. It's not a wash, it's a rinse. And there's no hard work to it, but you've got to rinse. And folks out there, everyone, I'm telling you that, now this to rinse or not to rinse question has caused more arguments in marriage, more divorces, and more murders probably than anything else. You could cheat on your wife, or she could cheat on you, or both, and it would still mean nothing next to the rinsing question. And I'm telling you, well, look, you either know this or you don't. Peanut butter, if it's not rinsed, just bakes on in the dishwasher, becomes part of the design. It'll never get off. Plus, I've got to say again, you're not washing them, Casey. You're rinsing them. You have got to start rinsing them. You're knocking off little pieces of green beans and rice and mushrooms and crust. And I'll tell you right now, if you ever invited me over for dinner, and I'd be honored and I'd be there in a flash, but I would never watch you put dirty, crust-filled plates into the unhappy dishwasher without forcing you to change your tone. So I have to tell you, good question, heck of a question. But rinse. Rinse, Casey, rinse. And all you folks out there, obviously I'm on the rinse side. I see, let's make our dishwashers happier than they are to have to, chop off that crust and all that gravy themselves. Rinse. Then put things in. The dishwasher will be happy, the plates will be happy, the forks will be happy, and you'll be happy. So trust me, Casey, good question. But rinse. Be everything you want to be, and it starts for you with rinsing. And by the way, I mentioned in the opening there the Lloyd Woodall Orchestra and the Zero Woodall Dancers. Yes, of course, they're related. It's a nice name, not a crazy name, but Lloyd wrote us to let us know that his daughter Zira had a snow day and school was canceled, and she was thrilled. I've talked about this before, and there's nothing. Colonel Jeff and I were both, as kids, gathered around that AM clock radio and listening to the announcement of schools to see which schools would be closed and hoping ours would be, and Zira was thrilled. All that's fine. All that's terrific. But then Lloyd wanted us to know that, when Zira had to go back to school the next day and for the rest of the week, she was really mad. She was angry. She was cranky. She didn't want to have to go to school. She liked the snow day, but she didn't want to have a school day. Now, I understand that. I don't support it. And Zira, if you're listening, I know the feeling. No kid wants to go to school. Okay, can we all just say that? Let's admit, no kid wants to go to school. Did you have a great time in school today? Oh, yes. No, you didn't. And even when you did, you didn't have a great time. But your dad, Lloyd, knows how to treat you well, and he knows how to let you gather around the AM clock radio too and see which schools are closed, and he knows how to be as happy as you are when you heard your school's name. But you know what? Can the rest of it. Be happy about a school day, because I'll tell you what, I can promise you, what you learn, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's a true one. What you learn in school and how you learn how to behave and being with your friends and being with your teachers. That's all terrific stuff. You may not think so because you're in the kid part of life. But trust your teachers, trust the principal, trust that school, and trust your father, Lloyd. You know what? Next time there's a snowstorm, do the same thing. Gather around the AM clock radio and be thrilled when you hear your school mentioned for being closed. So in any case, Casey, rinse your dishes. And Zira, enjoy that day off for snow day, but then enjoy the next one for school day. And by the Larry Miller Store and Amazon and PayPal. You know what, folks? We're very happy. Colonel Jeff and I were just talking about this. The Larry Miller Show store is now open for business, and it features, I really like these, and so does the Colonel. He designed them. It features 3 soon-to-be classic T-shirt designs. The first is the Larry Miller Drinking Society shirt. Now, you not only want one of these, you need one of these. It features the famous LMDS logo, that's Larry Miller Drinking Society, and our semi-secret slogan, Nominum Quid Geminis, which means, you call that a double? And these are all thoughts you want, and you want to show people. So get one of these, and they have another model that it's brand new, the Keep Calm and Larry On shirt. It's not just a mantra for life. As the Colonel says, it's the motto sensation that's sweeping the nation. That's our nation, by the way. And finally, now, this one shows how tough you are with the brand new I Survived Volcano number 2, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt shirt. And these are all good items, folks. I can't encourage you enough to, well, come on, go get them. All of our shirts, by the way, are printed on demand. It always sounds so tough to demand. Hey, hey, you, you're the guy with the newspaper hat. Make me a shirt. All shirts, they're printed on demand, so the point is you can choose from a variety of colors. And they're available, this is my favorite part, in both gentlemen's and ladies' cuts. All of these T-shirts. So you know what? Go to LarryMillerShow.com/store. That's right. That's LarryMillerShow.com/store. And you know what? Get some stuff from the Larry Miller Store. Thank you. It means a lot to us here. And you know what? It means a lot to the people at Amazon, too. They're still my favorite sponsor because Amazon does 3 things no one else can do. 1, whatever you order, you'll get. 2, they already have it. So they don't have to go to the company. They don't have to make it. They don't have to borrow it. They don't have to shine it up. It's all there in their gigantic Indiana Jones warehouse, which is a mile long and a mile wide and a mile high and a mile deep. Exactly a mile, by the way, on all those. And what you do is they've already got everything for you. And the third thing that they do that's great, no one else does this, they send us here at the show a percentage of whatever you order. You know, you don't even have to bring it up on your internet, on your laptop, on your iPhone, nothing. You could do that, but don't bother. What you do is go to our website, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Well, That's a nice button there. The timpani going up like that. The timpani drum. I played timpani in high school in the percussion section, and I was pretty good. Not as good as that guy, by the way. That was a good one, but I was pretty darn good. And I had the cymbals too. The big where we hold one in each hand and you crash, and it was much better when I did it when I was supposed to. But still, I would smash those cymbals and triangles and all, by the way, all the instruments with notes like the xylophone and the bells and, yes, snare drum, everything. I loved being a drummer. And I was the head of the drum section in the marching band, too. I loved that. The uniforms were a little heavy, 130 pounds of just, well, cloth from the old B-24s from World War II. But anyway, folks, you know what? Go to our website. We have a banner that says Amazon. Click our banner, then go take a nap. Get down. You don't even have to go to bed. Lie down in your favorite easy chair, your lazy boy chair, and push it back, lean back in it, and get your feet up there. You don't even need anything. You can make a drink or make a sandwich and put it down next to you, but you don't. Because when you're in a good chair like that, well, put a magazine over your face and take a snooze. And we'll get you there. And there's another banner there that says PayPal. That's a great group, favorite group of mine. PayPal, you work with PayPal, they make you feel like you're saving the world. And who knows, maybe you are. And we like PayPal very much, too. And, by the way, you know what? It's important to us. If you like the show, and why wouldn't you? And you'd like to send us a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can do it through PayPal. Instead of saying donate or pay what you like, I just like to say buy us some drinks. So there are different levels there. There's level 1 through 5, all the way up to... We're driving to Florida! Boy, that audience is in good shape still. So is that guy. We're driving to Florida. So look for the PayPal banner on our website, too. Remember, that's LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Gee, that's pretty good, that one there. That sounds like what you'd hear if you're escaping from the asylum. But hopefully you're hearing it way behind you, because that means you've already escaped. Oh, folks. Well, thank God we're not in the asylum, right? And by the way, there's so many items. We're very proud of it. And we're proud that you're part of it. So you know what? Thank you, Amazon. Thank you, PayPal. And go to the Larry Miller Store. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. There's that same timpani player, too. He's good. I like him. This is a pretty good joke. The Colonel and I both liked it. It's in a big office in a big city, and the boss in the office is at his desk, and he's working hard one day, and suddenly he hears from outside, just outside his office door, he's screaming and crying and gasping. Just and he gets up and he walks out there and he looks, and there's one of his assistants there is a very attractive blonde woman, and he walks over and says, "Well, Miss Collier, what's wrong here? What's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard my mother just died." And he says, "Good Lord, I'm sorry that happened. Close everything and go home right now. And you shouldn't be at work on a day like this." And she says, "No, sir, thank you, but I'll stay at work here for the day, and thank you, sir." And he said, "All right." And he goes back into his office and closes the door, and he goes back to work. And just a minute or two later, same thing happens. He hears a gasp and a scream and weeping. And he runs back out of the office there and goes up to her and says, well, what is it this time? And she says, I just talked to my sister. Her mother died too. I hope you like that one. The Colonel and I got a kick out of it. And that's also one of the jokes. There's so many ways to be funny, as you know, and so many styles. That's a good silly joke. I like silly jokes. And I hope you do too. And I hope you pass that on if you like it. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. Ah, yes, that great string quartet where the viola player has a cough. But you know what, folks? I love a good poem as much as I love a good joke. Well, maybe not completely as much, but I'm glad they're both here. And this one is a terrific poem. It's called Fate by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Emerson, the great Emerson, he's an American poet. He was a student at Harvard. He lived from 1803 to 1882. He was an ordained minister, too, and a very popular preacher, but he gave it up because of his lack of conviction to some of the religious dogma that he was putting out there. But boy, oh boy, he never quit poetry. And this is a good one of his called Fate. Deep in the man sits fast his fate, to mold his fortunes, mean or great. Unknown to Cromwell as to me was Cromwell's measure or degree, unknown to him as to his horse, if he than his groom be better or worse. He works, plots, fights in rude affairs, with squires, lords, kings his craft compares, till late he learned through doubt and fear, broad England harbored not his peer, obeying time the last to own the genius from its cloudy throne, for the provision is allied unto the thing so signified, or say, the foresight that awaits is the same genius that creates. I think that's a lovely poem. And it could mean a dozen different things. Maybe 112 different things. But good for you, Mr. Emerson. You're someone we can all love and respect. And I'm glad you put so much time in poetry. Fate by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show. Triple M. M. The Magic Movie Moment. Oh, and folks, this is a good one. From 1964, The Pink Panther. Now, it's been very popular for a long time, and you know what, though? If you haven't seen it in a long time, see it again. It's just terrific, and if you've never seen it, you're going to love it. It's such a good comedy, and it has a great story to it, too. It's directed by Blake Edwards, the great Blake Edwards, who has passed on himself just a few years ago. And it's starring Peter Sellers, David Niven, Capuchin, Robert Wagner, and so many others. And by the way, Capuchin, in case you didn't know her, was a really successful European model at that point in her life. And by the way, you say things like that, I do anyway. I'm not even sure. European model. I don't even know what that really means. There's a store near us here that always has signs up, things like European cookies. And I don't even know. Well, all right. So now I should come in to get, do you have any Oreos? No. How about cookies from Europe? Yes, didn't you see the sign? European cookies. In any case, though, The Pink Panther is a great movie. And what a great cast. And you know what? It has so much comedy and so much emotion in it. And you just can't beat Blake Edwards and Peter Sellers working together. You can't do it. And this is the first Pink Panther movie, by the way. There were several others, and they were all terrific. But boy, oh boy, this one is just so well directed and so well written and so funny. You can't beat Peter Sellers at playing all these moments. And the magic movie moment to me, though, is that at the end of the movie, after he's been, this is, I suppose, a spoiler, but it's not really that. He's been convicted that he's the jewel thief. But it's not, he's not. It's David Niven, who plays the Lord Charles Lytton in it, and he's very sophisticated and worldly. David Niven is great. And Capuchin, who plays Peter Sellers' wife in the movie, turns out was also more in love with David Niven. And they were both criminals themselves. They were the ones who stole everything, David Niven and Capuchin. And they are the ones who set up, and by the way, David Niven's nephew, Robert Wagner, who comes from the United States to see his uncle. And the uncle doesn't know yet that, well, Robert Wagner is a crook himself. So the three of these folks are really perfect to get together, and it's so well written. And by the end of it, after Peter Sellers has been convicted in court of that he's the jewel thief, but it turns out we know, first of all, Peter Sellers didn't do that, and Inspector Clouseau is not a criminal, but all the women in France have fallen in love with him because of what they think his crimes are, and he's a jewel thief, and he's some really fantastic spy-like character who goes all around Europe for cookies. But you know what? All the women in France, there's a crowd around the courthouse. It's of beautiful women, and they're all, as he gets let out by the police to go to jail. They're going to take him to jail. And they put him in a police car. It's in France, a French police car, and the two police, the guy driving and the one in the back seat with him, and they're all just, whew, boy, it's crazy out there. You know, all those women just love you. And one of the policemen says, yeah, my wife, boy, she's crazy about you, you know, and must be nice. And it's the first time Peter Sellers really, as his character, starts to hear how popular this criminal was, and they think it's him. And one of the cops says, yeah, boy, I'll tell you, you know what, you spent a year or two in prison, it's nothing. And then, boy, when you get out, though, look at all those women, and Sellers finally starts to get it. And he sees what he's become to all the people and all the beautiful women, and he gets how nice that'll be. And the cop says to him, so, boy, all those jobs you pulled, how did you do it? And for the first time in the movie, Sellers looks at the two police and thinks for a few seconds and says, well, you know, it wasn't easy. And he, for the first time, he goes with it. He buys into it, but we're happy for him. You know what? David Niven and Capuchin and Robert Wagner are off. Well, they'll be international jewel thieves, and they're going to go off. And Niven and Capuchin love each other anyway. And that's nice. And Robert Wagner is gorgeous. He's going to meet every woman in Europe and bring them cookies. Yes, I don't know why I can't stop saying that, but you know what? It's a terrific movie, folks. The Pink Panther, directed by Blake Edwards, the great man, from 1964. If you haven't seen it, see it. And if you've seen it 30 times, see it again. You'll be glad you did. And, well, it's nice to have things to be glad about. Here's something not to be glad about. If you're still saying Happy New Year, you're seriously out of your mind. Okay? I think it's fair to say that. It's nothing personal. Actually, it is personal, isn't it? But I guess if you're at this point, come on, it's more than halfway through January, and if you're still saying Happy New Year, and by the way, someone said it to me yesterday in the supermarket, and I know he's being nice. He's one of the folks who works there, and I like everyone there. And then just looking for happy things to say. And by the way, Happy New Year. All right, well, that's fine with me. But if you're just a regular person, folks, stop saying it. It's time now. Yes, God bless you. I wish you all a Happy New Year. And you wish me the same. And to Colonel Jeff, the same. But I think we can all stop saying it now. Because Colonel Jeff got one, by the way, this morning from his too happy neighbor. He has a neighbor where he lives who's too happy. He says he's aggressively friendly and frightening in that way. Now, I think we all know someone like this who really, he cornered the colonel this morning who was getting into his car to come here. And the guy, says just, stupid things of, he's got a big, they don't know each other really. Big, huge, annoying smile. And, hey, it's great to see you. And by the way, Happy New Year. Yes, he said it. And just, but it's the things where Colonel Jeff said to himself, he told me when he got here, he said, I don't get this feeling often, but I really wanted to kill him. And I knew what he meant. Of course, we don't want, not actually, but I never do anything like that. But I know what he means, and you know what he means too. And you want to say to this kind of person, that neighbor, take it easy. You know what? Because people like this are also a little frightening. You don't know how to trust them completely or in any way, really. No one has a smile that big. No one's that happy. And for no reason. This guy has got to be an inch away from becoming a serial killer. It's like those people, every time I'm in an elevator in a hotel anywhere in the United States and Canada too, anywhere in England, wherever I am, there are always those pictures in the elevators on the side, on the wall of the elevator, that shows the young couple. They're advertising their restaurant in the hotel. And they're trying to make you think, hey, honey, maybe we'll go to that restaurant. And there's a couple at a table in a restaurant, and they've each have a glass of wine, and their meal is in front of them. They're laughing and they're smiling at each other, and they're so happy to be there. And I always think to myself, no one has ever laughed like that. No one smiles like that. No one sane ever lives like that. I always think, you know what? I know really kind of some of the funniest people in the world. That's a great business of comedy. And, people, 4 or 5 or 6 of your closest friends are hysterically funny. And we've never laughed like that. And we see really kind of all the funny things they can say or I can say. And you know what? It's just the same sort of thing. No one should be that happy. And, well, Colonel Jeff, I haven't said this, but tell your neighbor next time, or maybe don't. Maybe he should be surprised by this. He might need a walk up to one of the volcanoes back on Milleronia. That might, put the fear of God into him. Put the fear of something into him, huh? But, he might know then. He might stop with that goofy smile and finally turn and say, am I this annoying that you would do this to me? And everyone would just say, yes. And is there any way out of this? No. This is Milleronia, and the rules are strict. So in any case, maybe tell him that sometimes. And you know what? Also, a great thing around here is that, I wanted to tell you about, I mentioned pastrami sandwiches in the opening. And last week, when Colonel Jeff and I did our show and put it out there to you, and I was talking about, pastrami. I was talking about how the Carnegie Deli was closing in New York, and about all there are a lot of terrific places in New York. Not as many as there were 100 years ago, of course, but they're terrific delicatessens. And boy, do they know something about pastrami. And I was talking about it so much, and I was so thrilled to talk about it that afterwards, well, the Colonel had to go on and make another show. But I went over to, we were on the mainland again, and I went over to Jerry's Deli, and also not a sponsor, I'm just saying they're there. And the Colonel and I have been there a lot after our shows. And but I went there, and I had pastrami on my mind, and I did it. I got it's not what you call a health meal, but you know what? Every so often, what the heck? So what? You get in there, and I sat down. I know all the waiters and waitresses there, and they smiled and said hi. And Richie, one of the great guys, came over and said hi, Larry. And I said hi, Richie. And he said, "You want to start with today's special soup?" And I said, "No. You know what? Give me, please, the combo sky-high pastrami and corned beef sandwich on rye." And with that, you get a bowl of pickles, and you get a side dish of coleslaw and a side dish of beans. And that may not sound so good to you, but it's great. And it's just pastrami and corned beef, and not a little of it, a lot of it, on rye bread, cut perfectly. And I asked him to heat it up for me. I said, "Could you please?" He said, "I'll steam that meat for you. It'll be nice and hot by the time you get it." And I said, "Great." And you just put some deli mustard on that. You pick the bread up and you put some deli, but that's all. Pastrami, corned beef, rye bread, and some deli mustard. And if you need more than that, I'm sorry. Go to McDonald's, which is fine, by the way. Go to McDonald's. But that day, that meal, folks, was just right. Those pastrami sandwiches are so big, even Russian weightlifters would have to take some off. They'd have to take the bread off and take some of the meat off. And boy, I had a great time. And when I left, I ate the whole thing. And sure, it's not the exact right way you want to live all the time, but I felt terrific. And I wasn't jammed full. And Richie said, "How was it?" And I said, "Richie, it was just what it ought to be." And he said, "Good." And I walked outside to my car in the parking lot, and it was a beautiful day. And I drove home, and I had loved that food so much. I even thought about stopping at McDonald's at the drive-thru and getting what? I haven't had enough food, but that's the way you think. Good food breeds good food. I didn't think about that more before saying it, but that would be good on a wood plaque on your wall. Good food breeds more good food. And you know what reminded me, though, that I was telling Colonel Jeff this morning that American college football players are well known, for the last 50, 60, 70 years and more, for going to big steakhouses, big, nice prime rib houses when they go to other cities to play. They come to town to play USC in a bowl game, and 14 of them stopped in at a place called Lowry's for the big prime rib meal. Again, they're not a sponsor. I'm just proud to say their name. They make a heck of a prime rib there. It's one of those where they bring it to each table in the big silver-covered cart, and they roll it up, and they have a couple of those things sitting there. And again, if you see that, you've got to say, "Okay, please, I'll have that. Give me one or two. Just, slice something with a bone in it, anything that has a bone in it, where you can put it on the plate, and everyone around you says, 'Holy mackerel.'" And you know what? They have some pictures in the front that I really like. It reminded me of this, that, yes, one of the college football teams, I think it was University of Wisconsin or something like that, but this is, 50 years ago, 55 years ago, and they came to town to play football. And they went to Lowry's for a big prime rib dinner. And folks, and there were 14 of them, and they stopped in for a big meal, dressed up, shirt and tie, and prime rib. But it's nice to see young men dressed like that, too. And in those days, they still would. When they went out, the coach would say, "Okay, now remember, look right." And the next day, also professional teams in those days, and Vince Lombardi saw to that, when they all went to get on the bus to go to the airport or to go to the stadium, they were all dressed really well. They had sport jackets, shirt and tie, slacks, nice shoes, and those were the team rules. And, well, Vince Lombardi, God bless him, was a great coach, but I'll bet you $1 you didn't want to go against his rules or any professional football team. Come on. If they say, look right, and you don't look right, good luck now. But I'll tell you what, folks, that this one fella they showed in Lowry's, they had a picture of him, a framed 8x10 black and white photo of one of the football players. And he had 13 orders of prime rib. And that's a lot. In fact, that is a rib. I mean, that's like a suitcase full of the whole cow. But I'm telling you, and he looked great, by the way. I mean, he was a good-looking young man and dressed up nicely. And this is after the meal the photo was taken. So he didn't look tired or stuffed or like he was in a competition from a TV show. He looked fine. He looked happy. And he was happy. And standing around him, of course, was the owner of the place. In back of him and the manager of the place. They brought the chef out. But boy, oh boy, 13 orders of extra Diamond Jim Brady prime rib. And in fact, that was 55 years ago. I'll bet you he is still digesting that meal. That's how big that meal was. But he was as happy as could be. And why not, folks? You know what? Let's get ourselves into celebrating things that maybe you didn't think you would celebrate. But I'm going to see. I'm telling you, this is something for this weekend. One of my kids and I are going to see The King and I, which is a big Broadway reproduction. It's supposed to be just fabulous. And I loved that movie so well with Yul Brynner and Deborah Carr and so many other great stars. The King and I was a great movie. And, of course, that was, 50 years ago or something. But boy, oh boy, folks, it's playing out here. And the last show, that's why we're not on Milleronia now. Because after we tape our show here, I'm going to call. I know it's just a couple of days before, but I want to go, and my kid wants to go too. And my wife isn't going to be here with us. She's going to be in D.C., in Washington. Not for the inauguration. She's going to be there for some of the get-togethers and rallies the day after the inauguration. Some of the, a march, and, she's going to be there with her friends, in fact, her best friends here, and they're going to all go together, and they're going to have signs and march, and that's fine, God bless her. You know what, she wants to do that, and they all do, her friends. So they're going to go do that, and I'm sure I'll hear all the stories from it. I'll let you know if anything interesting happens. Like maybe a prime rib dinner at the Lowry's in Washington. But you know what? That's why my kid and I said, Saturday night is their last show in this production of The King and I. And you know what? I hope we can still get tickets. And what a show by Rodgers and Hammerstein. And, all those fellas were so great. It reminded me of a story of Lerner and Lowe. Now, that's Alan J. Lerner and Frederick Lowe were a great team in writing musicals. And their work, by the way, Brigadoon, Gigi, Camelot, Paint Your Wagon, so many others. And they were just great and hugely successful, and they deserved to be. And this is in the 50s. They also wrote My Fair Lady, which is just a beautiful movie with Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn. So many other stars in that movie. And the music and the lyrics are just fabulous. But it reminded me, I had read about they were so successful, not only from everything else they've ever done, but from My Fair Lady. It was just, it was about 6 months open on Broadway, and it was going to run forever. And people were picking it up all over the world to make in their theaters. And they went to London, the two of them, to talk about doing it in London there, see a theater or something. And they're there in London. And before the meeting, they went out to get lunch together at a really nice restaurant. And then they went to a Rolls-Royce dealer. And they went to the number one big Rolls-Royce dealer in London. This is in the 50s, remember? And boy, oh boy, they were each going to get a Rolls-Royce. They were going to, well, that was the plan. They just had a good meal, and they were each going to get one, a Rolls-Royce. And they sit there and they're about to sign, and one of them, learners says to Lo, yeah, you know what? You got lunch, I'll get these. And I thought, that's such a great moment. And it's how things come down, by the way. 50, 60 years later, that I still read about it, and I get to tell you. But that's a pretty good, you know what? You got lunch, I'll get these. In the Rolls-Royce dealer. And they laughed, and the salesman laughed, and now I get to tell you. And those things mean a lot. You know what means a lot to me, by the way? And we're going to put this, I just want to say something about the inauguration, by the way. You know, this says, I just think maybe it's getting a little nutty that so many people that you're for, you love the guy, you hate the guy, and can't we all just let it go? Because can't we have one day every 4 years where you and I, and it doesn't matter, you hate this, you love that, it doesn't matter, for that one day, let's just all celebrate and feel good that in our country we change hands, we change the power moves from one to the other, and it happens just with a vote that no one gets shot or killed, and I thought I said this to Colonel Jeff before, can't we all just let it go for one day? And I realized, no, we can't. We really can't. That's not what we're about somehow, and I don't know why. I didn't, I hope you're okay. If just, you know what? I don't think, the Colonel and I are probably not going to watch. Oh, we'll be out working, doing what we do, but, it's not where that, we both feel the same way, that we're not burning inside to watch any of the bands play. You know, they had someone come, someone not come. You know, it's enough for me. And you know what? Can't we get along on it for one day every 4 years? No, we can't. And I think there's one thing we can all agree on, by the way. That night, after the inauguration, after all the day of stuff, and they'll be having their balls and dances, I guess. But I thought to myself, I said to the Colonel, you know, every hotel bar that night in Washington will have arguments and fist fights you and I can't imagine and wouldn't want to see. Can you imagine that? Every hotel bar? Oh, you were at the inauguration. I tried to blow it up. Hey, those are my peanuts. But, you know, that's that's the way we are. There's not 1 square inch of any of those bars will have someone calmly reading a magazine. And plus, now the next day after that, or 2 days after that, every bartender will be glad to still be alive. And you know what? Whatever happens, just let's maybe that one day they can all just walk down the street or be in the cars or make a speech. It's just enough. I don't need it, and it's okay with me. And so, you know what, though, folks? The things that there is, I'm going to be wearing this. We're going to take a picture of it. A fireman's helmet. A real fireman's helmet. And that I got sent to me by the California State Association of, I'm not saying their name right. I did a show for them, a benefit to help them raise money. And it was going to be a really big event. And it was the Improv out here, and I got there, and I support them for everything. You know, who wouldn't? Come on. Raising money for firemen? Yeah. And I'm going to put the thing on, and we'll take a picture of it. But I was awfully glad they were nice enough to send that to me. And when we got there to the Improv, though, my publicist, Michael, was there, Michael Hansen, and with me, and he had a date that night, and he brought her along. Well, the idea was, let's go see the show, and Larry's on the show. And we got there, and the whole room, by the way, had 22 people in it. And I mean, that's it. That was the total, 22 people. So they were all kind of jammed into the front there, the first couple of tables. And I said, what is this? And the people were there, the organizers, 22 people, that's what you got? And get this, no, it's fine with me. They're smiling. Yes, it's great. It's fine. It's fun. It's, So, you're not going to say, I just glanced over at Hanson and said, 22. That doesn't seem like enough people interested in firemen and firefighters. And by the way, out of the 22, I went on stage, and I really am glad to be there. That's fine with me. 22 people, 19 of them were very attractive, pretty, single women. And they were there to meet a fireman. That's what they wanted. They wanted, sure, they'll pay, the cover charge will go to the organization as a benefit of, they're fine with that, but they wanted to meet, 19 of them wanted to meet 19 firemen. Yeah, that's it. They wanted to meet firemen. And that's kind of it. And that night, they were glad they were there, but not as glad as they wanted to be, because frankly, there were no firemen there. There were, very close to zero there. Well, that's just zero. That's what it was. But we had fun. I had a good show, and in fact, I was talking about that, that they're there, and they really should just all get into a bus and go to a firehouse so they can meet firemen, because that's really what they wanted. But you know what, folks? That's another case, I suppose, of, I still got the things I wanted to get. I was helping this group, and they were helping the group too, all the 19 women. Very pretty women, by the way. Firemen, they're single women, and the firemen would be single men who would want to meet them. I think they're going to be sorry they weren't there. But I got a helmet out of it, and I know that's good, and you do too. And you and I know that Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. Be well and be safe from fires, and we'll see you here next time.